Alrighty, guys. I am very pleased to have y'all, and I'm very pleased to have our guest today because we're going to be talking about a interesting subject. Although we're having a MACVSOG vet on, and I'm sure we'll have MACVSOG questions come up, but we're going to be speaking about Tony's post-SOG career. And one of the when really getting to speaking with him these past few years, it's been amazing learning about what he did post SOG, not only in Okinawa but also back stateside. And one of the more interesting things that I learned about after watching the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, finding out that Tony was in and with this unit and the men featured in that movie. So without further ado, before I confuse anybody else any more than I already have, I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Tony, and he's going to shed the light on us for us today and have a great show for today. So, Mr. Tony, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Bud. I appreciate you doing this. Again, I appreciate everything you do for preserving our history and giving us an opportunity to speak on this kind of stuff. We had spoken a number of times, and I mentioned that I was in the unit that's portrayed in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats with George Clooney. And you thought it might be interesting to talk about that, and I am interested in talking about it. It's as I told you, in the movie they portray it as one unit, but what it is basically is an amalgam of intelligence and security command run by General Stubblebine, who was portrayed in the movie as the guy who tried to run through walls, and Lieutenant Colonel Jim Shannon, who, as far as I know, did have the combat experience that the movie portrayed. And then after that, he was allowed a lot of privilege, and he did do the Esalen stuff and hot tubs and smoking pot and the whole, California New Age type of thinking. And in the Army, he, in my crowd, he was looked up to as a futurist, and he kind of invented the ultralight infantry and those types of things. So he was portrayed in the movie as someone who was, danced around with flowers and stuff, but a very smart, no nonsense guy, but did have some futuristic ideas about what the Army was and was supposed to be, and had a lot of people listening to him. So it's an amalgam of those two things, and I think that's all I'll say about it right now. But it was an odd and interesting path to get to the point where I'm in this worldwide unit of Army spies, and exposed to the spoon bending stuff and the firewalking stuff, and I was my cover was Equal Opportunity NCO, but basically what I did was travel all over the world and teach something called neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis to Army spooks. And so, but it was a long road to get there, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that because I think it's interesting, because the Army was going through, Vietnam was certainly winding down. So I left. I was on the Halo detachment in Okinawa. I loved doing that. I had my family there, and my wife was eager to get back to the States. We had been there about 4 years, and she was eager to get back home. And so I rotated from Okinawa in May of 1972 and went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, where the 10th Special Forces Group was. And so I was supposed to be assigned to C Company, 10th Group, but I wanted to be on a Halo detachment. And I knew Barney Watson from FOB2 was in B Company. And so I went over to the B Company Sergeant Major. I talked to Barney, and he and I went to the B Company Sergeant Major. And I said, I'd like to come to B Company because I'd like a slot on the Halo detachment. And he said, sure. And so I signed in B Company and then found out I'd be triple slotted as the junior radar operator on the Halo detachment, which meant I wouldn't be on the Halo detachment. So I was pissed about that. He kind of like made a promise to me, and I wasn't happy, and I thought that he broke it, and I wasn't happy about it, and so I was kind of mouthy at the time, and so I didn't let it go. And finally, they got tired of me complaining, and they sent me down to we were sending E4s and E5s to the NCO Academy from Fort Devens, and they were failing out. So they developed this school for E4s, kind of like an NCO prep school. And Special Forces was running it. And so they sent me down there as basically punishment, or to get me out of the way. And so I was teaching a 6-hour block of instruction on map reading. And I had a 4-hour block of training on something that they called then race relations. And I knew a lot about map reading, but race relations, I didn't know much. I was an old boy from Georgia, from the segregated South. You get fed racism in your mother's milk, and so I wasn't very good at the race relations stuff. But there was a guy, Sergeant First Class Booker T. Cherry, who I was supposed to replace, and evidently we taught one class together, and he didn't like what I had to say. And he told me to sit in the back of the class and make notes, anything I disagreed with, anything that I didn't believe, anything like that. Write it down on a piece of paper, and we'll talk about it afterwards. And we did. We did that a lot. And finally, at some point he recommended that I read the book autobiography of Malcolm X, and so I did that. I remember sitting there as I was about middle ways through the book, thinking, as an old boy from the South, holy shit, I've been lied to. And so then I got curious. Read and I got curious, and I started reading stuff. That was when I started getting into reading. Anyway, make the long story short, I was very into the equal opportunity training stuff with BT, and he and I got pretty good at it. And then eventually I went down to Patrick Air Force Base, Florida, in 1973. No, this had to be 72. And I was one of 6 white NCOs that was in the Army's race relations program. And the Army definitely wanted white guys in there, white NCOs specifically, because usually the Equal Opportunity Office looked like a white officer and a black NCO or minority NCO, and just I didn't look good anyway. So they were really, recruiting white guys. And so I went to the school. It was 4 months of what I call white man bad, but I learned a lot. And yeah, and they were not going to let me fail. I was totally an affirmative action hire. so anyway, got involved in that. Went back to Fort Devens, and it just got worse and worse with me in the 10th group. They really didn't like me, and this was the time General Abrams was chief of staff for the Army, and he was cutting back all special forces stuff, and so low budgets for equipment training and that kind of stuff, and it was miserable. It was miserable time in special forces as far as I was concerned. Plus, I was miserable in the 10th, and so I put in for a transfer to Colorado Springs to Army Air Defense Command. So I got out of Special Forces and went to as the Equal Opportunity NCO for Army Air Defense Command, which closed down in about 6 months. Came back to D.C., got a job in D.C. as one of the trainers for I think we were training two half-day periods of what they call the RAP program, the Racial Awareness Program. And my partner was a guy named Brady C. Jones. And we would go over to the Pentagon, basically train lieutenant general, lower-ranking generals, colonels, and lieutenant colonels, sometimes a major every now and then, on 2 half days of the Army's Racial Awareness Program. And at that time, you could put a gun up to somebody's head and say, if you don't go to the Racial Awareness Program, I'm going to pull the trigger. He'll go, I don't want to go to the Racial Awareness Program. It was brutal. It was early days stuff, and a lot of pushback, and it was just tough. So anyway, did that. Went to Germany. I was Equal Opportunity NCO at the 11th Armored Cav, where I got to serve with another Medal of Honor winner. I'm going to block his name. Anyway,
That's fine.
he was the Equal Opportunity Officer. I was his NCO. And then I left and went back to Fort Meade, Maryland, and was the Equal Opportunity NCO for Northeast Region Recruiting Command. So I was in the recruiting business. And we had 13 substations. It was me and an officer. And we had 13 substations throughout the northeastern United States. And we traveled that route twice a year, looking at affirmative action programs, training programs. So, as you can see, as I was in the Equal Opportunity Program, I was constantly moving up to a higher level of command and starting to look at it instead of just training, starting to look at it as program rollout stuff. Anyway, did that for a while. There was a rumor that the Army had opened up its organizational effectiveness school in Monterey, California, which was a 4-month kind of master's level management consulting school that had it was opened in 1976, kind of the progressive movement of the Army at that time. and was only for officers. And in the first class of 1981, there was a mix of officers and NCOs, and I was in that class. I will have to say, though, there was a NCO named Peter Bartlett who had gone through that course too and was teaching on the faculty there. And so it wasn't, I wasn't completely new in terms of being I wasn't the first NCO, but I was in the first class of mixed officers NCOs. And then went back to Fort. Oh, it was interesting. I had heard a rumor that they were had openings for the school, and they wanted an organizational effectiveness NCO for Fort Meade. And so I went for the interview, and I was supposed to have 2 years of college to get into school. I didn't have that, and so I went for the interview anyway. And so I get in the interview, and it's this major who was a pilot, an ex-pilot, who was who flew guns at FOB2. And so he and I talked. It was no interview. It was he and I talked about old times at FOB2, and pulling teams out, and this person and that person, and so it was like an old home meeting, So I got the opportunity to go to school. So I got the opportunity to go to school. Went to the school. It was kind of over my head a bit, but I got through it. And while I was there at this management consultant school, there was a 1-hour class on neuro-linguistic programming. And it kind of struck a note with me. They talked about, if your eyes move up, they're visualizing. If they move down and right, you're feeling. If you move left and right, you're into auditory. And people speak in sense specific language and that kind of stuff. And I was wide-eyed at that. I saw it as something really powerful in terms of human communication, and all I knew is I wanted to know more about it. So I got all the books, and I read up on it. And then when I went back to Fort Meade and was consulting there, they wanted to do, it was in the OE regulation that they had to do professional development once a year. And so they hadn't been doing it, so they had a bunch of money in the budget to go to professional development. So they sent me to the practitioner course, which was a month long at UC Santa Cruz in 1981, I think. Might have been, yeah, it was 1981. It was August of 1981. So I went through the practitioner course of neuro-linguistic programming. And in the Army, in the organizational effectiveness group, there was this guy, Major Frank Burns, who was the only master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming in the Army. And he used to go around teaching it all over the Army. And he used to do side seminars that he would sell. Anyway, he was the only master practitioner. So in 82, I went back for the master practitioner course, and it was all hypnosis, a lot of linguistic stuff. The neuro part of the neuro-linguistic programming has been debunked a long time ago, but I was very interested in the linguistic stuff. For example, I'll give you an example. If you ask, if someone says a belief statement, I like Apple computers. And if you ask what I call the magic question, what makes you think that, or what causes you to believe that? The answer you'll always get is the criteria that supported the belief. So if I say I like Apple computers, you say, what caused you to believe that? Well, they're user friendly. Point and shoot. I like the Apple support. So what you've learned is my criteria that supports my belief that Apple computer is a good thing. That's pretty spiffy, man. Not only do you get the criteria that supports their belief, you learn something interesting about them. And if you want to, you could use that. So I was very into the linguistic stuff. And I was a master practitioner. I got good at the hypnosis stuff. And I eventually went to teach on the faculty at the consultant school in Monterey. And I was teaching consulting skills. But I do night classes in hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and stuff. I was at this point, I was really good at talking stuff. I was a good trainer. I had a good sense of audience. I'd done technical subjects. I'd done philosophical subjects like leadership and that kind of thing. So I was getting pretty good to that business, running my mouth. And so I was on the faculty, and while I was on the faculty, I got to go up to Santa Cruz, where all the gurus, NLP gurus, hang out. And I used to work for those guys for free on the weekends, audio taping seminars they were giving. When they would break them up into groups and give them an exercise, I could go around and help a group that was stuck, those kinds of things. Then the school closed down in 84, and that's when I went to the Men Who Stare at Scope Unit. So that's kind of like the shorthand of my Army career. But the thing is that at the time I was the only master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming in the Army.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like there was kind of a mystique about it that this guy knows stuff that you don't know what he's doing. You don't know what he's doing. You don't know when he's doing hypnosis on you. Anyway, so when the school closed down, I went to the guy I had been training at the Pentagon with, Brady C. Jones, who's dead now, but one of my heroes. He was one of the first black helicopter pilots. Anyway, Brady was the equal opportunity officer there. He was the EEO, the Equal Employment Opportunity Officer. He was a civilian now. And they wanted an E8 NCOIC there. And so through hook and crook, he got me there. And so my job I was the Equal Opportunity NCO, but I had to, so this is a worldwide command, Intelligence and Security Command, worldwide command, Army spies. And my job was to travel all over the world, teaching NLP and hypnosis to Army spies. And so I'd be in Munich one month, and I'd be in Tokyo the next, and Seoul 1 month. And so I was on the road about 3 weeks out of the month. When I showed up, there was somebody to meet me with a car and take my luggage. I had a hotel reserved for me somewhere, and classroom set up for me when I showed up. So it was nice. I was the man. It was like being the man. So yeah, it was fun.
I mean, we've let me get you on both of us on screen here. There's already some good questions, and some of this is going to lead in, but I had one right off the bat. Considering you had already mentioned, we'll go back to, of course, talking about some of the men who stare at goat things, but what you were just speaking about, your training of hypnotism and such, and training agents. You see all this stuff online about hypnotism and people doing regressive uh, memory regressions and all of this and
Right.
all of that.
Right.
Uh, how legit? What was it? What type of hypnotism were you doing for them? Teaching? What was going on in that type
So,
of?
um, for me, I could say everything is hypnosis and nothing is hypnosis. If you said, if I come over to your house and you say, come in and sit down and make yourself comfortable, you've given me a number of suggestions that I will either do or I won't do. So in essence, you've done that. So it's pacing, it's all pacing and leading, and you can do it behaviorally or you can do it linguistically. Um, so the specific type of hypnosis I was doing was Ericksonian hypnosis. Milton Erickson is the father of American hypnosis, and it was he did a lot of what I call plain speech hypnosis. It's not like we're sitting in the room together and I have you, relax on the couch and uh, close your eyes and take deep breaths, and you can do that. Um, but I'll tell a story. Erickson was working in a mental health facility, and there was a guy who was imagining himself as Jesus Christ, and was bothering everybody about following him and preaching to them and blah 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 blah. And he was just a pain in the ass. So Erickson goes up. He's walking down the hall. The guy's walking down the hall and he goes, "Hey." And the guy goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I understand you know a lot about carpentry." And the guy goes, he couldn't deny that. So Erickson set him to work making bookshelves, which he wasn't bothering anybody, but he was doing carpentry like that. So that type of hypnosis. So Intelligence Security Command is now at Fort Belvoir, but it used to be in Arlington Hall Station, which is just right outside of Washington, D.C. And it was a very small post. And General Stubblebine was a very forward-thinking guy. I think he's passed away too. But he figured, I've got the best signal intelligence money can buy. What I need is human intelligence. And so he started looking into anything that was human excellence, human possibilities. And I think so he started inviting people in, like Uri Geller and the spoon bending stuff. Now, I've never seen a spoon bend, but my buddy Brady, he 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 said he saw one, but I wasn't there for that. But I was there when Tony Robbins came and did his firewalking stuff. Yeah, there you go. Um, Tony Robbins came and did his firewalking stuff. Um, And there was this whole group that was down in Monroe Institute in Virginia doing the remote viewing and those kinds of things. And there was a lieutenant that committed suicide. For those of you who've seen the movie, in the movie, there's a lieutenant that commits suicide. And that did happen. That was real. We did have a lieutenant that committed suicide, but it wasn't like in the quadrangle and shooting up other people. He did it in his room. Um, I didn't know much about it, but I understood that he was, a deeply religious person, and they were doing a lot of this out of the body, travel in the world kind of remote views. My hand is just for some reason.
Kind
That's
of
the reason I'm
also
scared.
seemed it kind of seemed like in the movie. I hate to interject on you,
No, no, please.
but it I don't this again. This could be the Hollywood making it Hollywood and more interesting, but it seemed like they were still. I don't know if Mr. Jim knew about it at the time or had stopped it, but that one guy that was playing Kevin Spacey's bad character, he was, I believe, force feeding the young lieutenant because he saw promise or thought he could use him, force feeding him acid that they had hooked up that was high power and trying to get him to do it. And that's what caused the scene to where he went. So
No, General Stubblebine got relieved. I don't know that he got relieved. He lost his command, and he retired shortly after that. And I I don't know. I wasn't working at his level, but what I imagined is that there were people inside the unit that thought what he was doing was a bunch of hokum, and some of it was, but um,
bring up a thing.
and so that it was a waste of Army's money, and so I think that's the reason he lost his command.
Vietnam, like you said, 25th Infantry as a G2, Legion of Merit, Bronze Star. But here it comes into your time frame. Colonel was with, it mentioned right here, his INSACOM time, Commanding General of U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSACOM, from 81 to 84, which is when he then retired from active service, as you just mentioned. And you said some of the guys got to where they were thinking he was a little too off the wall, as you can see, creating a super soldier who would become invisible at will, walk through walls, as he attempted to do from himself. That may be a rumor, may not be. And then, of course, he was a huge proponent of the Stargate, as you said, the remote viewing, levitation. There was something else to where they falsely attributed Satanism to him, and that's where some of the stuff started getting into him. But he was successful afterwards. He went to the BDM Corporation as their vice president and was even inducted, as you can see, into the Military Intelligence Hall of Fame, which is that they don't just induct any crazy people into that. So
No, he
clearly,
was a sharp guy, man. He was really sharp, you know, and the stuff I was doing, wasn't bad. I remember one time they told me to wear civilian clothes and this was in DC area, go to this mall and wear civilian clothes and go to this mall at this certain place, stand in front of this certain store. Um, First of all, Intelligence Security Command is not like a unit that they portray in the movie, like everybody's together and everybody is kind of like a platoon thing. No, intelligence organizations are extremely compartmentalized. So I had, if I know you from work and I see you downtown at a restaurant, I'm not allowed to go up and say hello to you because I might be blowing your cover. You might be on a mission, and so you don't. if you see people from work, you don't acknowledge their existence because they may be working. So it's like that, and so it's highly compartmentalized. It did get kind of cliquish in terms of, I mean, Tony Robbins is Tony Robbins, and he deserves he's got his own shtick, but firewalking, yeah, I get it. You get people to do something they didn't think they could be able to do. But if you jump out of an airplane at 13,500 feet, you can get your brain to do something it doesn't want to do.
I was about to say,
So, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, y'all walk across the fire, big deal. So, there was this whole like clique about the firewalking thing, and oh, Tony, people like you, so I think you'll be invited to a barbecue soon, like that. So one time, so they told me to be in civilian clothes, pick me up at a mall, and that's what happened. They picked me up in a covered van. I got in the back of the van. They drove, I'm sure, I can't say it, a false route, and opened the doors inside a garage of a building. They had a training room that was set up, and I taught a whole day of hypnosis. And then they put me back in the van, went back to the mall, dropped me off, picked me up the next day, same drill, and taught the second day of hypnosis. But in there, I used to do this thing where there's an exercise I do. It's the lie. We'll just, for lack of a better, call it the lie detector exercise. So I would have you sit in front of the room, and then you tell 2 or 3 stories that are true about yourself. And then you tell 2 or 3 stories that are lies about yourself. And while you're doing that, I have one part of the class look at your face and upper torso, your face, and I have part of the class looking at your torso, and part of the class looking at your lower legs, your lower body. And then you can tell either the truth or a lie. And then the class guesses, and they tell you why. And we had one guy got up. So for his thing that was either the truth or a lie, he told his cover story, because he had told it so much, he felt like he believed it himself, and so they wouldn't be able to detect it as a lie. Man, and they busted the shit out of him on that, and it freaked him out. He was like, he was totally freaked out. He says, "You mean people can tell I'm lying? Oh my God, oh my God!" He was freaked out over that. So things like that. One of the interesting things that happen is, if you're in intelligence and security command, you get to meet a lot of folks that have been in the business a while. And when I left the management consultant school in Monterey, the Army had just come out with this fighting doctrine, Air Land Battle 2000, and it was cast into the dustbins of everyone's office. But I picked it up and read it, and it talked about the leadership that you're going to need in the future. And this is like 1982, 83. This is the future battle plan of the United States, and coordination between all services, and these are the leadership traits that you're supposed to have as to be the leader in this future army. And keep and it had some good stuff in there. Keep your mind on the mission, but if the plan's not working, come up with a new plan. Hi, Michelle. How you doing? So pretty good stuff. And so I had all this NLP training and hypnosis training, and so I was designing a program for Intelligence Security Command called Leadership 2000, which would be based on the leadership characteristics in the Army Fighting Doctrine and Land Battle 2000. And I started rolling that thing out, and it got a decent reception, and people thought it was worthwhile to continue. And so instead of me doing all the training, we'd videotape it. So we're videotaping it, and I had invited Colonel Holland, who was a prisoner in the embassy in Iran, who was a lieutenant colonel in Intelligence Security Command at the headquarters, and I invited him to sit in and speak on any topic he wanted. And so I was teaching a part about having choices. I called it requisite variety. The more choices you have, the more flexible you are, it is better. And so Lieutenant Holland spoke up, and he said when he was a prisoner in the embassy, they would communicate with each other in the bathroom, because there weren't any surveillance things in the bathroom. And so he said, but eventually the Iranians got wise to that and did put cameras up in the bathroom. And so Colonel Holland said what he and a bunch of his colleagues did was when they were in the bathroom, they'd drop their drawers and spread their ass cheeks toward the camera and waggle their dicks at the camera. And he said he knew the Muslims weren't going to like that. And so he said eventually they took the cameras down. And his point was, he said some of the embassy people thought that was beneath them. He said, but the bathroom was the only place we could actually communicate with each other, and we had to have that. So you got to go to whatever extreme measure you need to do that. So he spoke in there. That was, and I got that on tape, and that was really good. I love that. So things like that. And then, interesting things. People would come up and want me to do hypnosis to help them stop smoking and that kind of thing.
Oh, was that successful? Did you have success with that with some smokers?
I remember, that kind of therapy thing wasn't my thing. I mean, a lot of people that were into the NLP thing was into the therapy thing. And I really was into the linguistic part of it, and the behaviorist stuff part of it. There was this lieutenant colonel who was about 5'2". He was a short guy, and he smoked, and he wanted me to do a stop smoking thing. And I hadn't really thought about it, and I hadn't really studied up on, I know that there's I know from personal experience, there's the chemical addiction to it. And then there's so I started doing this things, you can't stop smoking until you start to stop, and this confusing. and you'll have these certain feelings, and so I was going on with it. I was really playing up the start to stop thing, and finally I had run that one about as far as I could, and so he was and I said I ended it up with, and whether you start to stop or you stop, you'll still be fucking short. And I don't think anybody had ever said that to him, especially an NCO. And he burst out laughing. He burst out laughing like crazy.
I could see you saying that to him though. It's that is hilarious. We've got some really good questions. There's a few that are gonna go back to SOG. We'll get to it the back, but
yeah, if you want a war story, I got a war story for you.
we'll hit that towards the end.
Okay.
Before I get to the viewer questions, I had one question. Considering we're talking intel, Army security, and all of that, did you ever happen to cross paths in this line of work that you were doing with any agency guys or anything like that, or was it Army intel guys that you were?
I remember I was teaching a class somewhere in the United States, probably Fort Monmouth or someplace like that, and I ran across Bettis, who was the 1-0 for Team California. Before Barnes and I think before Barnes and I, and just before Joe Walker. So I ran across it. So you're in an intelligence unit, and so you're going to run across guys who were in intelligence. I ran across Butch Fernandez. I was teaching on the faculty of the consultant school in Monterey. This was in like 82, 83 ish. And he was one of the guys that put us through the pre-snake bite training in Okinawa. He was a good guy. I like Butch. And he was the sergeant major for a light infantry unit there at Fort Ord. So he was walking by and said, "Hey, Butch." And he looked at me and he came, "Hey, man, how you doing? Long time no see. I'm the sergeant." He says, "I'm the sergeant major of the light infantry, battalion here. Blah, blah, blah. I need a first sergeant. You want to be my first sergeant?" And I go, "No, Bush, man, I like doing, this training stuff. I like this consultant stuff, man." And he looked at me like he was smelling a fart. He's like, how could you like this? How could you like not doing the infantry stuff, man?" No, I was done.
You definitely gone through more than enough of your infantry battles and all the hard charging you needed to be doing.
Well, plus I was thinking at a different level then. I was more thinking at systems level. How do you roll out programs in a large system? Those kinds of things. I was already beginning to have ideas about organizational culture, but I didn't have words for it at that time. I couldn't. It didn't fit with morale. It didn't fit with those kinds of things. And I was starting to have early ideas about organizations have cultures. That was the kind of the birth of that. So questions.
Yes. Not so much a question to start off, but I understand why the military would be interested in NLP. It can be devastatingly effective.
It can, but it's difficult to learn and hard to teach.
Yeah, from all I've heard you talking to me, it is just right over the top of my head.
Well, the fact that it takes like a 3-day explanation it would tell you that it's not easy to learn.
No.
You have to practice it. But I had a lot of practice, and it was pretty much incorporated in my behavior. Leave your dog alone, man. Let him do his thing. He's all right. Nobody's gonna care.
Getting you can see elbows shining from slobber. I was trying to get the slobber
Mm.
maker off me, but they ran off now. They heard you. They said, "Oh, Tony told me to get the hell out of here." Jason had one. Oh yeah, this was a good one. Jason was curious. What were some of the most uncomfortable or maybe just weird training experiences you had with NLP and your hypnotism?
Well, first of all, I didn't like to do demonstrations because you not only you put me on the spot, you put the person who I'm supposed to be interacting with on the spot. And I had done a demonstration when I was at the OE school with a guy who, volunteered to come up and said he would cooperate, and because if you're resisting it, you're resisting it. And there's some things I could do, but if I don't know that you're resisting it, anyway. Who came up to me later on and said, I said, he said, I was totally not going to let you put me in a trance. So usually, in this class that I taught, where they picked me up in the covered van. So hypnosis is very subtle in my mind. You use fluffy language. You can say you can think about certain things, or you can imagine yourself doing this, or start to stop, that kind of stuff. You have patterns, and the patterns are you pace the person where they are by saying things that are true. So, like, you're nodding your head. That's a true thing. Yeah, you did it again. That's another true thing. And you're smiling, and your hand goes to your face. Now, I know if your hand goes to your face that you're saying something to yourself inside. So I can use a lead and say that you may ask yourself certain questions. Just what is this hypnosis? So I paced you by using your behavior, and then I led you because I know that body behavior, when your hand goes to your face, my belief is you're talking to yourself inside. And so I can lead that and you can ask yourself certain questions. You fill in the blanks. When I say certain questions, who the hell knows what those questions are you're going to ask? But I can lead that too. Wouldn't it be great if I knew this? Wouldn't it be great if Tony could teach me a class in this? I could lead it pretty much any way I want to go. So I was in this class, and I'm trying to give these people things they can use, not necessarily things. I didn't expect them to be able to do hypnosis. I just expected them to kind of understand that we're kind of always doing it in one way or another. So this one guy says, this is awfully subtle. He says, I was expecting, to get people to squat like a chicken. And I said, hey, what sound does a chicken make? And he went, blah, blah. I said, you don't need hypnosis for that.
I love that. They right there had you already.
Uncomfortable. I can't think of anything uncomfortable. Well, I was the kind of guy you can trust with your life, but you can't trust with your wife. And so I was when I was doing that NLP and hypnosis all over the world, I was laying a lot of pipe, so to speak.
Perfect choice of words, laying a lot of pipe. And I could see how that your training could help you out in the field, so to speak, a lot. uh, Galil was curious. I'm not real. There's two questions come up about some names. Did you ever work with a Dr. Death, John Alexander?
John Alexander sounds familiar. I think he was in Intelligence Security Command. I don't know the moniker Dr. Death, but I think I do know a John Alexander. I think he was a colonel or a lieutenant colonel in Intelligence Security Command. I remember when I watched Men Who Stare at Goats the first time. It was on a compact disc,
Mhm.
and it had some interviews with real live people that were in the unit. And there was an Alexander. I'm not sure if we're talking
Maybe,
about the same guy.
maybe here in a bit, he will see that we brought that up, and he'll give us a little more info to work
Yeah,
on.
I don't. The Doctor Death moniker I don't recognize.
Yeah, I didn't even know John Alexander. So, Caravaggio, in my honest opinion, you have to be God Almighty,
So,
susceptible to NLP for it to work. It's very much a predator prey dynamic.
no,
Thoughts on that? No.
no, it's not.
There we go. Easy.
The first part, and the second part. Um, I, I think NLP gives someone an advantage in a conversation for many reasons. But one is that you're paying attention to things at a linguistic and a behavioral level that the other person is not paying attention to. And so, if you're paying attention to that, um, you're working at a different level than they are. You'll notice their idiomatic behaviors. If they put their hand to their face, like Bud tends to do. I don't mean to. I don't mean to make you
Getting
feel
analyzed here this morning.
I don't make you mean, but the thing is that when I see that now, I make the meaning of that you talk to yourself inside. I don't know what you're saying to yourself. I don't know what you're saying to yourself inside, but I do know that you're engaging in a behavior. And if I saw that, then I could use that to my advantage by saying you can ask yourself certain questions, or you might say to yourself, "I'm still confused. I don't know what he's really talking about." Anyway, I think you can use NLP to be that you can have malintent. I think you can use it with malintent, but I think that eventually it doesn't work if you're malintended. I think that the old canard about hypnosis is that people will only engage in suggestions that they would normally engage in. I think that's probably valid.
Speaking of that, negative things coming up, to kind of tie in, because this is actually fairly interesting, and I'd actually like to get your your opinion on this, because we'll just get the question. Glenn Griffin was wondering, was Charles Manson involved in government? Yes, he was. So that's the rumor, but I was going to ask you, besides dosing all of his members and all of that, I've heard rumors he was using some sort of rudimentary, I guess, once they were dosed up enough, and he just kept repeating the same old thing, same old thing. He'd get them hypnotized or what have you. What are your thoughts on that whole Manson thing? And was he maybe using something like NLP for ill-reputed purposes, or?
I don't know. The thing is that I don't know. I don't know much about the Manson guy. I do know that he had kind of people under his control. But the thing is that you can do this. There's people who do this stuff uh, that they just have skills at it. Trump is one.
Mm.
Trump is sui generis in terms of this having that skill of hypnosis and persuasion. It's obvious it works.
I mean, kind of like a telemarketer laying into you, and I need being able to, I guess, talk you into, I don't know, sympathy, or reading your sympathy, or what have you, and maybe getting a donation or something like that, kind of working on the same level of feeling out person's what they're saying, maybe what they're feeling.
I don't know anything about government LSD acid programs or anything like that. I don't know anything about that at all. And if I knew something, I'd say something. But
I've got a book I'm going to recommend to you when we get offline that you will greatly be interested in. It's about Whitey Bulger and the experiments in the prisons and stuff that I'll get to you. That'll be interesting. And they speak about some of the programming stuff. That's why I brought that up. But wow, there's some really good ones. I'm skipping around here, but how good were you? How good were you, would you say, at the NLP side? Were there men much, much better than you at it? What were the difference makers between being good and being great at NLP?
Well, I'd have to say I was really good at it because I practiced it a lot, and I was always, and when I was stationed at the consultant school in Monterey, I spent a lot of time in Santa Cruz dealing with Todd. One of the things that happened was one of the gurus, NLP gurus, a guy named Todd Epstein, was hired by a psychiatrist to teach him a 7-day class, one-on-one 7-day class in hypnosis. And so Todd designed the class, and he asked me to go through the class as his test experiment to see if he could, if what he was going to teach the guy that paid him $7,000. So I got a $7,000 intensive training, 7-day intensive training on hypnosis. I did NLP a lot. I practiced NLP a lot. I was fairly decent at. I haven't been doing hypnosis or any NLP, those kinds of things, in a long time as an intentional thing. I have incorporated a lot of that into my ongoing behavior, but it's usually if I'm in a conversation and things aren't working, I start to pay attention. Am I speaking in a visual language and they're speaking in a kinesthetic language, or what's going wrong here such that the conversation isn't going smoothly? So I don't gear it in and think of it consciously at all. I just assume I'm speaking the same language as whoever it is I'm speaking with. Let's see. I don't, in the Army, I don't think there's anybody better at it. There was probably some better people that were in the NLP stuff. Yes, you're on target. Colonel John Alexander, former Greenville study thing. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
I did know him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So pretty good guy that when you know him.
He was into the things that could not be explained. He says when you're in a combat situation and you're caught dead to rights and suddenly things happen that you can't explain, but you get away. He was very much into The things that could not be explained, and could you bottle it? Oh, when I was at there, I was working on a program called the. It never went anywhere because it was called the epistemology of excellence. So you pick people who are models of excellence, and then you do intensive interviews with them and figure out, so what's the difference that makes a difference, and then you can bottle that into some kind of training program where you teach people how to be excellent, like that. Never went anywhere, but I was involved in that for a while. You know, I said, well, who's the model? And General so and so. I said, well, let's interview General so and so. Well, he's kind of a quiet person, and he's kind of private person. And I said, okay, those are two things. What else? So like that, but no one was interested in being a model of excellence. But there was things like that going on all the time. I mean, they had a bunch of CAN programs that were what I call CAN programs is like the 10 qualities of excellence, or the 7 habits of highly effective people, and those kinds of things. So they had these CAN training programs, and I did those too. You know, if it doesn't go against what I believe, I'll train it.
It's Mr. Jim talking about the Earth One Battalion. My
Oh,
allegiance goes
First Earth
beyond
Battalion.
duty, honor, country. It's to the people and to the planet. Not all people have the courage to take charge of themselves, but everyone has enough warrior and enough monk inside to become a powerful and yet sensitive evolutionary. This manual is designed to connect you with your own power act.
Yeah,
You
I
had a
had a
little bit
copy
of
of that at one time. I don't anymore, but I had a copy of that. Yeah, I wish I still did it. You know, I've been to I've been divorced 3 times, man. I've lost a lot of shit along the way. So
yes, Tony. I still tell him he has one hell of a story enough to put in a book if he'd ever want to do it.
who's that? Who's that?
That was Mr. Terry Caddenback
Oh,
saying. Let's see. Gosh, there's a lot of good ones, and I've been skipping around. Sorry about that. Jason had another one. Did you get contacted by, or were you at least made aware by any of the people that the movie the Men Who Stare at Goats was being made or coming?
had no clue. Had no clue. As a matter of fact, it was an old movie when I saw it the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, people kept saying, "Oh, you you seen the Men Who Stare at Goats movie? Have you seen them?" And I said, "No, no, 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 no." I finally watched it. I went, "Holy shit! That was fucking Intelligence Security Command." That was
It's
the whole deal, man.
that's got to be really neat, and especially there you didn't even know about it because it was a pretty big hit right off the bat, and I can only imagine what it was like there. You seen it much later and being like, "What the heck? They made a movie about the unit." Jason's had a few good ones. Did you buy into the program immediately, or did it take some convincing for you to get all in with it?
When you say the program, uh, I was bought into the program in terms of being the NLP guy and the hypnosis guy for Intelligence Security Command, because it was the best job in the Army, man. People envied me my job. I was all over the world 3 weeks out of the month. You know, I come back, I have enough time to pay my bills and do my laundry and hit the road again, man. And it was best. People, when I said I was going to retire, people couldn't believe it. They thought, "Man, you can't retire. You got the best job in the Army," and I pretty much did. Yeah, it's pretty good. But in terms of, like I said, the first Earth Battalion ideas that Jim Shannon had, and the warrior monk kind of thing, and the army of the future, swear to people and planet and that kind of thing. Yeah, I was into that. Yeah, I was into that. I was into that whole idea.
Yeah, I mean, from speaking to you, that sounds like that was, I mean, right, especially after SOG, no combat, and all that. That sounded like it was right up your alley, and something you were really enjoying.
Well,
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you right
no,
there.
there was a question.
Kyle said we had a hypnotist come to his company, and he made one of his buddies cluck like a chicken. Dude never said more than a few words every shift, so I know it's real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that you can do what I call context manipulation. So the people up on stage, um, they're in the mindset of one thing, and you can say, this is really a contest about who's the best singer, and so when I say the words potato sack, I want you to jump up and sing, God bless America to the top of your lungs, but you might not win because there's going to be other people singing with you. And then when you see her sing, you jump up and compete. And so to the people that are doing it in their head, they're in a context of a contest. But to the audience, it just looks like people are doing crazy shit because somebody says so.
This is I've always been I've not never smart enough, but like I said, reading that book, I'm gonna get you a free copy of, or try and get you a copy of. And my mom being a psychologist, I've always been interested in the human mind and just what it is capable of doing, and going through and being resilient. That's actually, Jason has a great question. We'll flip back. We're going through, but these questions tie into what we're actually speaking to, and I'd be interested to see what you've got to say. Are there benefits for hypnosis for PTS, and was that ever worked on by the military while you were in?
Generally, I have opinions on this. I don't have any. I'm not a therapist. Um, I don't pretend to be one on TV. I know hypnosis, and it's in terms of its um, as a linguistic phenomenon. It's not worked for me. I'll say that it's not worked for me. However, the notions of studying linguistics has worked for me a lot, because by the plain and simple fact that you're thinking about language when you're engaging in the world, you're already in a disassociated state. In other words, I'm typically not in my body. I'm typically thinking outside my body and what's going on and how the conversation is going. What do I want? Those kinds of things. I don't think talk therapy works very good for PTSD. To be honest, I think it's a brain chemistry thing. I love the VA and all the health care they give me, but going to a VA therapist for post-traumatic stress is like going to a sex therapist that's only watched porno as their training. I don't have a whole lot of respect for VA therapy group, but that's just my opinion.
I would agree. As the son of a vet who was just devastated by PTS, he never found any help with hypnosis. Definitely not with talking, because, like you said, he immediately started talking and found out these guys, were college kids, never held a gun, never shot a gun, and he's gonna sit here and tell about his buddy getting his head blown off. It just no good.
I'm going to recommend a book.
Yes.
This is by Colonel Dave Grossman, on killing. If you've ever shot at somebody or been shot at, that's a good book to read. Or planning to shoot at somebody, that's a good book to read. I have a cop that's my next door neighbor. I gave him a copy. He loved it. He went to a seminar by the guy. He knows what he's talking about. And he has I've recommended that book to every therapist, every VA therapist I've had, and they not one has read it, and they should. I hate to go on about the VA because I really love the healthcare that I get there, but man, the therapy group, what a bunch of fucking yahoos.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I grew up learning about the VA, and I'll forever, and then hearing about them more from speaking to all of you. I don't have much care for the VA, sadly, anymore. This question's come up along with some others, considering Inception, the film Inception, with I believe it was Leo DiCaprio. Did you see that with all the?
I did.
What did you think about that?
Strange.
Yeah,
I got I get all that notion of using your brain to change reality and that kind of stuff, and you do that with drugs too.
Yeah, I was about to say. And speaking of, I don't like to label them as drugs, but a lot of our vets, the GWAT, and I can only assume because y'all old heads did it, but the mushrooms, the ayahuasca treatments, and stuff like that. I've been hearing a lot of people saying they're having a lot of, and ketamine as well, with PTS, dealing with PTS for therapy. But again, that's every man has to have his own way of getting through it, and some things don't work for others.
Question.
Caravaggio, how much of that was covered for an extra covert program? Seems awful far-fetched. I guess he means maybe that you were the B squad to a high secret organization or something.
I don't know. The thing is, I can't know what I don't know, and there may have been, conspiracies and cabals and drugs and those kinds of things that I wasn't privy. Like I said, intelligence units are very compartmentalized, and you don't stray into other people's turf. And like I said, it's so it's cliquish by nature. So there's things going on that you don't know about, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those things are nefarious. They may be they probably are, and probably have experimented with LSD and ecstasy and ketamine and those kinds of things these days. Back then, I have no idea. There was a whole different notion about drugs and especially psychotics, psychedelics, and those types of things.
Oh yeah, they were looked upon terribly, terribly. Jason's got a lot of good ones, and there's several more coming up about SOG. But how much of hypnosis or NLP is just being likable and having people want to listen to you to an extent? I know you will tell me tell me if I'm completely wrong.
No, you're not completely wrong. For me, the whole idea about the hypnosis and the neuro-linguistic programming is I want to give you what you want. If it's stop smoking, I want to give that to you. if I possibly can, either using NLP or hypnosis. If yes, I want people. I want people to like me, so I get what I want. And that's whether I'm at a restaurant. I treat the servers with absolute respect. I was a working stiff. I know what being a working stiff is like, man, and it ain't easy. So I'm ultra nice, and I tip well. I'm nice to the people around me. There's not many arguments happen in my house. Um, I have a small house at a lake resort place, and I didn't expect to have friends and community, but I happened to get that there, but so yes, but being able to use the skills that are required to be really good at neurolinguistic programming or hypnosis takes a lot of training and takes a lot of experience using it, doing it. Otherwise, it looks weird. Otherwise, it comes across as phony or weird because you're not behaving naturally.
Yeah, and like you said, I can imagine it can only work a lot better when you come off when you are likable, when the person you're working with finds you a likable person and will want to listen to you to get help. So Caravaggio, is it true there is a passive capacity, but the active aggressive techniques require a victim? Again, only my opinion / experience.
Is there a passive capacity, but the active aggressive techniques require a victim? Well,
Maybe a victim that
one of my okay. So one of my things is that if I'm in a conflict with someone, one of the things I like to do is you owe me an apology. You might not give it to me, but you owe it to me. So that's a suggestion. That's a suggestion that they owe me an apology, and they can't not think about that. But going for people's weaknesses, like you feel inadequate, or you'll never be the man that kind of stuff. That stuff I never do. Again, that's not going to play well over time.
sounds like that's on the opposite end of the intel working and working with people, trying to get something out of someone by any means, as opposed to helping and training and all of that, which you were doing. That seems a little more on the interrogation side of things is what I'm reading there. Active aggressive techniques, kind of seem like that a totally different, ball.
Oh well, you can make people feel uncomfortable.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
absolutely. You get somebody you're interrogating, and you go, "Okay, buddy, you're alone here. It's just me and you, and nobody's going to beat you up. Matter of fact, we want to treat you nice, but you got to tell us stuff. You got to give up some. You got to give up something. Otherwise, we'll fucking put you somewhere where you'll be, we'll shoot rice to you with a fucking straw every day." You could that kind of stuff, intimidation stuff, absolutely. But if you're trying to interrogate somebody that has information, you want them to feel comfortable, not comfortable, but you want them to feel like that you're in rapport with them, as opposed to that you pose some threat to them.
Khalil said Tony was using his hypnosis skills in the last interview. I went out and bought an Israeli bullpup after hearing him say he'd like to have had one of the solo days.
God, you stole my weapon, you motherfucker. I can't have one of those in California. Yeah, I like that bullpup configuration a lot.
Oh, man, that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. Good one, Khalil. Some of these last ones are going to be tying into SOG, but this one
Okay.
is dividing the line between your work we just spoke about and SOG. So Mary Jo was curious, during your years with SOG, was there any interest in using transcendental meditation as a form of stress control or mind mission development, as those were your years in Maharishi's influence?
Nah. Nah, none of that. That would have been too. That would have been certainly not in rapport with the culture. I mean, there may have been guys that did that, but there were no programs for that.
Wanting a base wide meditation session, you're saying?
Yeah. We did some of that at the OE school,
Yeah.
at the organizational effectiveness school. As a matter of fact, that was the big thing about that school is people thought we were like the Jim Shannon character in the movie, that were all flowers and love beads and that kind of thing. And so the officers that were in charge were always like on guard for that.
That's hilarious. I love that. There was one last one dealing with the movie before the SOG. Jason was curious, is there truth to the origins of the program that were in the movie? The French cooked up a rumor that we were doing PSI stuff. The Russians believed it, which made them start doing PSI.
I can't say that that's wrong. It may very well be valid. That's entirely possible.
That sounds like some Cold War stuff that.
Well, I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's that catch-22 kind of thing. We weren't doing it, but we started a rumor that we did it, and then the Russians started to do it. Now we have to do it because the Russians are doing it. But there's odd things. I mean, like people have these oddball skills. Like I read there was this guy, you could draw circles on a chalkboard and then bring him in the room and take his blindfold off, and he'll take a glance at it and say 136, and you count the dots on the blackboard and be 136. That kind of stuff. I mean, that's that savant stuff. That there were guys that had that were like that. The truth of the origins of the movie. Yeah, that's that's probably valid. I can't imagine it. Well, it's not out of the realm of something that would happen in the Army during those days.
It definitely, if it didn't happen, it sounds like something that very well could have and might well have happened. Jason's got the two SOG or three SOG questions, and then we can let you go either a war story. If we want to save it for another one, we can. But Jason, throughout your career after SOG, we spoke about this offline, how many SOG men did you run into? If you did, were you able to catch up with them at all, or did you have to keep it hush-hush because of the NDA in effect?
Well, I was on the Halo detachment with a lot of SOG guys, and we never spoke about what we did. We all just kind of knew. You were at FOB4. What'd you do? Oh, I was chase medic, or I was, recon guy, or I was on Team Iowa. So we. And then, like I said, I ran into Bettis when I was in the Intelligence Security Command. He was the 1-0 of Team California before Barnes and I took it. And then Just trying to remember. But when I left the 10th group, I was completely out of the circle of people who would meet up with SOG folks. I didn't meet many in my circle after I got out of Special Forces in '72.
And like you said there at Okinawa for a while, you were around quite a few of SOG men that you had served with, or at least knew.
Oh yeah, I saw when I was spent 6 months in Colorado Springs with the Air Defense Command. Jungling lived in Denver, so I went up to meet Jug. We played some golf, I think, but that was the only time I'd seen anybody. Jug's wife didn't like me, so it was hard. It was hard to get time with Jug. Anyway,
He's great guy, and great photos that we've got of him. I always love sharing that one of him in tiger stripes out there on the Ho Chi Minh Trail where he's just ran an ambush. Wonderful photo. I'll post that for you guys. That was one of Mr. Tony's best buds, and they actually did some parachute training together that he mentioned in a prior episode. This has come up in the group, and it's been a contention. But did you have tattoos while you were in SOG, or did you get any after? Can you remember tattoos other guys had?
The most famous guy with tattoos was De La Rosa.
Villarosa, the dotted line.
De La Rosa. He was covered in tattoos. I had a Playboy bunny tattooed on my ass.
Not you too.
Yeah, and I got that.
Bechtold and Carl.
Well, I don't know. We didn't get it together.
Okay.
But I had that tattooed. I had that tattooed later on. But yeah, man, I got bunches of tattoos. I got a whole leg piece.
You and Michelle got one together, didn't y'all?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought she came and visited y'all.
I've got armband.
One on your forearm, your peace symbol, or your
my atheist tattoo.
Atheist, okay.
And then this one.
Yeah, damn, you've got a bunch. I forgot how much ink you had now.
So that makes the Star of David, if you didn't notice.
Okay, yeah, we can see it now. Wow.
I can't.
Yeah. That's a beautiful tattoo. Beautiful
Anyway, now I got them on my chest.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've seen some guys posting pictures. I posted one or two of Larry Trimble from CCN. He had the famous, let me get to where you can see me. He had the famous 101st Airborne paratrooper one, and the Black Panther, and then another guy had the old Army jump wings right here, airborne, and some guy, I believe, did Bob have a forearm tattoo? Big Bob? Or was he ink clean?
I don't remember. The best tattoo I saw, the SOG tattoo I ever saw was DiCarlo. DiCarlo had a big shoulder piece with the that Peru patch with the tiger, and that was not. He had a nice one. It was well done too.
Wow, man, I would have loved to have seen that. I hate he's no longer with us.
I wish I had a picture of it. I'd have one done. I'd have that done on my other thigh. I like tattoos, man.
Yeah, I've only got my 3 little ones. My Grateful Dead and Life is Good. And then when I was too scared to figure out what it felt like when I was 16, I got my initials. I'm thinking about getting some more, but haven't quite decided. That story I read on Tony's Facebook where Jug's messing with the medic is absolutely hilarious.
That was even funnier when it happened. It was, and that just to me it just shows how smart juggling is. I mean, he thought that whole business up in the club, That was going on in his mind in the club.
Boy, some of the best pranks I've ever heard of in my entire life are from you guys. Just absolutely hilarious. The last part of the SOG question before we get to the last SOG question. Did guys, when y'all were getting into SOG, when they found out men had tattoos, was there men ever denied access or either thrown out because they had ink or anything?
No.
That's what I thought.
We were told that there might be operations that we couldn't go on because we had tattoos.
Okay.
But
and considering y'all are,
since mine was on my ass, I always denied that I had it. So
that's what the Baron said. I believe the Baron and Carl got the Playboy bunny on their butt cheeks as well, and they flat out denied until Carl went to Dead A, as you know, and they gave him the once over, and they found his.
well, I got mine with a guy, my running buddy in training group, Tom Beto.
Oh wow!
I don't know. He went to an A camp, I think, and then he just got out of the Army. He had a business. He ran a business. Evidently, he's doing really well.
Oh wow! I'll look him up and see where maybe find what camp he was at. But the last SOG question, and we'll decide what we're gonna do here. But couldn't join, but interested in the details of the MFF/Halo rigs, assuming steerable rounds and no O2. What did they use for spotting? Was AF AWODs operational back then? This is from Rich Hintz, CCS Commo Man.
So we had pair commanders. When I was with the Halo detachment, we jumped pair commanders. As the Halo detachment, we jumped. But everybody else had to jump. I forgot what parachute it was.
P10.
I don't even think it had any slots. Back then, it didn't have any slots. I think it was just a round parachute. Anyway.
Ooh.
I only jumped oxygen one. Well, I jumped it twice. Once I was in a training that was below oxygen level, but I did jump it once at oxygen level. Usually the jump master spots out the door, if that's what you're talking about. The jump master spots out the door and talks on the is in contact with the pilot and steers the pilot to the release point, which they had talked about ahead of time. I don't know what AWODs is. Is that some type of navigational thing? I know that the people that did the Halo jumps in Vietnam were using a Blackbird C-130, and I think it had advanced navigational stuff because guys were telling me, they could jump through the clouds and without seeing the release point and those types of things. So, if that's what AWADS is, there was probably some of it going on back then, but I never experienced any.
I've just brought this up. I'm going to let you see it because this is your neck of the woods. This is the joint test employment of AWODs. The purpose of this is for jump test team composed of personnel from Tactical Air Center, the 10, 15, 18th Corps of the Army Infantry, T-10 and MC-1 standard parachutes, 500 ceiling, 2-mile visibility. I have no idea what that is. Current AWOD's air crew procedures. I guess it's a jump procedure. I have no idea what that is, sir.
I don't either. I don't recognize the acronym.
Jason, maybe we can get him to elaborate on what he was meaning on the AWODs, but as far as that's we can help you out on that one, or help Mr. Rich out. Did you we're here at almost hour 45. Did you want to tell a war story, or did you want to maybe hold off and do a special war story
Well,
episode?
well, my purpose in telling the story is not to talk about me, is to pay homage to Moose Monroe and Mike Pelez. And
Would you like to do a special Moose episode with me? If I can do from his Project Delta, I've got a book with some of his missions and stuff, and us talk
absolutely,
about.
I love Moose. Moose was a good guy. He's a great 1-0. He knew his shit. Good in the woods. Good in the battle. Mike Pelez too.
You've got you, as you had just said, great 1-0. You knew him very well. There's a lot of people don't know how good he was in Project Delta, how long he was in Vietnam, from 63 or 4 till 71 or 72. So would you like to maybe just hold on that? Because I don't think we've ever told that story before that we're going to tell.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. We've been on a while, and
yeah.
I don't want to.
I'd hate to fog up.
I'm cognizant of the audience, and I don't want to, change the direction.
Subject matter, absolutely. Yeah. I think that would be good. A special tribute to Moose from you, doing that. So, do you want me to stay in touch with you and us just schedule that and us plan a good Moose show?
You bet.
Okay, then, guys, if there's, let me check and make sure, but we might have to get Rich in direct contact. Okay, if we have to, they're both CCS men. We'll link them up if we need to.
Thank you. I want to thank the audience for showing up, and thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it. And salute.
Absolutely. We thank you as always, and I will stay in the loop with you about getting ready for Mr. Moose. And I'm actually going to touch base, actually stay on when I end the stream because I need to ask you a quick question, and then we'll be done. But all right, guys, I'm signing off. So me and Tony will see you later, and y'all have a great day. See y'all later.